No, that's the level of viewers that you
Yo.
start getting affiliate on Twitch for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we
So
are.
if you have them previewing, you're set.
Yeah, it was 6, it's now 5, but yeah, we have 5 people here already. Scott
I
will
am
be
one of them.
joining us. Oh, you are one of them.
Are we live now?
Yeah, I just switched over to us
Cool.
being
Hey
live. Let
everyone.
me make sure, Aubrey. Yeah, I think everything's come
What
through. Yeah.
is up, people?
Scott will be joining us. We're just waiting for them to
Surely.
arrive. Sophia was sharing a new game
Yeah, I was
obsession.
plugging the finals to everybody who hasn't heard of it. It's a new game that just came out. It's by some devs that I really do care about. If you ever played the Battlefield games, and I mean like the good ones, not like the ones that kind of on the series, uh, the devs who made it got tired of EA's bullshit and left and made their own studio called Embark, I want to say.
Hmm.
And they've been working on a game called The Finals, and it's finally here. And it's
Haha.
basically like a future game show set in virtual reality. And it's like, yeah, it's got guns and shooting and all the stuff you'd expect out of a modern first person shooter, but it's not M rated by any means. Like, they have like a commentator, like commentators who make puns about your team names constantly.
Hmm.
Like, if your team name is Big Splash and you all team wipe, they'll say, Big Splash left high and dry. They won't be needing towels. you know,
That's funny.
Lol.
like they'll make puns about your team names in really funny, cheesy ways. When you shoot somebody, there's no blood. When you kill them, they explode into fucking coins on the ground and their body turns into a little cute plastic figurine of themselves with like a
Hmm.
little base so that it stands upright. And like you can grab it with telekinesis and like carry it somewhere safe and like res them or do a res
Telekinesis.
right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get telekinesis in the game. Certain objects you can pick up just by hitting square. I play on console, so hitting square.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like there's canisters you can pick up and throw. Like foam ones that'll put up walls and stuff, but it's foam, so if you light it on fire, it combusts and it'll eventually explode. Like you can destroy like almost everything in the game. Like the heavy class can like literally has an ability to just let it run through fucking walls, which is as amazing as it sounds.
Hmm.
Um, when and the whole point of it is to do the game show to like steal the money and cash it out and like steal it from enemy teams, and whoever does two cash outs successfully wins a quick play match. And like it's good. It feels good. It's balanced. It's new. It's fresh. It's gonna be something really big. And the other thing, like I was talking about earlier, hey, it's Scott.
Hi, sorry about that.
There they
No, you're fine.
You're good.
are.
I'll just finish this up quick before we start chatting with Scott. The
Mhm.
other thing that I really like about it is it's very femme themed. So like the battle pass is like all women style aesthetics, right? Not to say guys can't wear femme stuff, right? But it's like a fucking what do you call it? It's a fucking wedding dress, so you can be like a vengeful bride, and like one of them is a Ophelia from Greek mythology. So like black tutu, and like throwing knives. It's really cool.
That sounds cool.
Yeah. Anyways, how are you, Scott?
I'm actually really good today. I mean, obviously this weather got me a little sleepy,
Mm.
but
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know, otherwise I'm pretty good. I made cookies with my family yesterday. That was really cool.
Aww.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know how it is, the holidays had to be with family I really liked, family I didn't, but that's all good. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Hell yeah.
How's everyone else?
Good. I went to a huge goth party last night, called the Krampus Ball. It I've never been to it before, but it really feels like one of the like premier goth events in Toronto because like anybody was there, and oh shit. And what ended up happening was like I went and had a good time, and I'm like, I'm gonna go to this more often because it was like witchy, and like everybody was wearing horns and shit, and like there's very clearly a lot of pagans. And I met this one guy, and he had witchcraft tattoos on him, and me being me, I'm like, oh hey, can I see your neck tats? And I'm like, sick occult tattoos. What is that, Luciferian? He's like, yeah. I'm like, what's this one over here? Oh yeah, that's the Lamech. That's the universal hexagram. And he's like, yeah.
Oh, one of those. One of those.
Yeah.
Oh
boy.
yeah.
No, he knew what he had, right?
Oh, okay. I thought he
But
was like, oh yeah, if
I
you say
know
so.
that he was picking stuff just for the aesthetic of it. He never like straight up said, "Oh yeah, I'm a chaos magician" or anything like that.
Right.
Which would make sense based off of like the tattoos that I see. If you got Luciferian shit and you got Thelemic, you're likely a chaos magician. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just didn't call him on it to his face, but like he could tell if I'm like straight up telling him what sects his individual symbols are from. He knows that I know.
I
Ain't no
just feel
point
like
in saying beyond that.
if you're gonna get an occult symbol tattooed on you for pure aesthetic, I guess at least know what the name of it is, right? At least
Oh, he
like
did.
know
He did.
that. So good on him.
Yeah. He wasn't like a poser or nothing about it. He wasn't like trying, and they weren't like. It's not
It
like he
wasn't
had
just aesthetic.
gigantic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like he had a dinner plate sized fucking pentagram, right? He had some occult tattoos, right? He knew exactly what they were, and I spot on about that. And he didn't try to have like a bigger, longer conversation about it. That was totally cool, right? You meet other artists at Gotham, and it can be pretty cool.
Mhm.
Also, my partner's backpack somehow magically hooked on his partner's bra. So like that's how we met. We were on the dance floor and like they accidentally got hooked on each other. And we're like
Cool.
doing like a fucking pit maneuver in there, trying to like unhook the two of them from each other. And then it ends up like you make friends that way. Like it's funny. I like shit. I made a friend at another event by spilling her drink. Like I was trying to um sneak by, like walk by an area, and like a guy moved and I had to back up and I knocked over a drink on a table.
Mm,
And she was like, "Where'd my drink go?" I was like, "Oh, I fucking knocked it over." And so
my
I bought her a
ass
new drink and I
knocked
made
it
a friend
over.
that way.
That's what it
I
is
actually made two
99%
new
of the
friends
time.
because the person she was with thought it was very nice that I just bought her the drink, right?
Oh yeah.
So yeah, shit happening sometimes is how you meet people. Anyways,
Absolutely.
Scott, how the fuck are you?
Everything's been pretty normal. Like, there's really not much to really go into. What should I call it? Like, things are very mundane right now. I don't really
Mm.
have much of like, you know, things are just frustrating. Like, the house is like a mess. I have to clean today with my mom. We have to
Mm.
decorate. Like, it's all very mundane. Nothing extravagant or super interesting is happening, which, in all honesty, I kind of appreciate. I'm kind of happy for things not all happening at once right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I kind of like that we're like settling into a routine, like with Darian and everything. Um, and he's doing well, overall. So
Good. I wanted to ask that. I was like, how is our Dare Bear?
Yeah.
yeah, no, he's all right. He's having some big feelings today.
Mm.
What's it called? I just gave him his safety blanket, so he's on the couch with his blanket. But he's okay otherwise. Like physically, I know what you mean. The as far as the kidneys go. He's still responding really well to treatment. Um
Yay.
and he is, yeah, the only thing that really kicks his ass, they do this thing, I didn't even know that they could do this, but they could take like water weight from you.
Mm.
And they tried to take a lot the first time they tried it, like about 2 weeks ago or something like that, and we got really worried. We almost took him back to the hospital because he just was like didn't
Not good.
didn't
Yeah.
do the thing. Me and my mom were a little freaked out at first, but mom was like, you know what, just let him rest for now. Nothing's too bad. He just seems really tired, just really out of it. So I was like, all right, we'll let him rest. Thankfully, he woke up the next day kind of more or less himself. But when he went back, he let them know that like, hey, the first day you guys went a little overboard.
Yeah.
Let's maybe take it down a little, like just a little less. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he responded well the next time they tried it. But yeah, other than that, he's pretty much okay. Just the feelings stuff, the tisms and
I bet.
the depressions, that parts. I mean, he's also on medicine now for depression, so he's doing that too. So it's like a lot there, but he's all right, and I'm
Good.
okay. Yeah, I'm all right.
Good.
Just tired. How's everyone else? Because I hear
Uh,
Rue has an interesting experience to talk about.
I
ooh.
do. Trying to pick a good starting point. I too am exhausted. My job's getting.
Move the mic closer to your mouth.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I try not to be too loud. You know me, I'm so loud, and I don't want to
Just
fucking blow out
you
everybody's
have
ears.
to, or you end up whispering and no. Okay. Stop. Thank you. It's just so funny. Like in podcast form, Rue is a different person because in person, Rue can shatter glass with their voice. Like just like the volume is there, and yet you put room for it's like and I'm like anyhow, continue with your story, my dear.
Anywho, okay. Clear. Yes. Yes. Whatever. Trying to put my thoughts in order. Oh my goodness. So yeah, last night, normal night. Well, actually, that was where I wanted to start. It was funny that you mentioned, Sophia, you went to a Krampus ball. Me,
Yeah.
Jay, and Ken were at the Parade of Spirits, which is like a Krampus themed event that is organized by Rob, who is our elder from Pagan Pride. Everybody knows Rob. And it's a really fun. It's in this little park in Northern Liberties, and Sing Slavic opened and did a little performance, which is always great. And then we literally walk through the streets of Northern Liberties, just making a ton of noise, and people come out of their house, and people bring their kids, and it's really impressive. Like our line is like at least a city block, if not 2 city blocks long. At like every year, the attendance increases, which is amazing. So yeah, we did that yesterday. We got all dressed up. You have there's pictures. Rob's posted pictures on Facebook. I will also post pictures. I did Jay up to look like old green man, and Ken did his own face, and he looked like he was like a skull face, and I had a half skull
Honestly,
mask.
he really looked like King Diamond, is what I think he looked like.
Yes, exactly.
He's like standard like white face with black around the eyes, you know.
Yeah.
Dull.
But yeah, it was a wonderful time, and we left there, came home, had McDonald's for dinner, go to bed, and I woke up at about. I normally always wake up like every 2 to 3 hours to go to the bathroom. It's terrible. I drink so much water, I guess. And I got up to go to the bathroom at about like 3:30 in the morning, and Barry followed me into the bathroom as he does, and I finished my business. I walk back. Obviously, all the lights are off. I walk back into the bedroom, and um, before like I could even make it, I was at the end of the bed. Um, I saw the most solid figure I have ever really seen, and it was standing over Jay. It was on his side of the bed, and it was like clearly defined. He was like the height of our bureau plus a box on top. All I could tell, like, it was a hooded figure, and it just had a hood, no face, no distinguishing factors. And I was like, okay, my eyes are just playing tricks on me. I'm tired. Shadows, whatever. And then it actually took a step towards Jay, And that's when I started freaking out a little bit. And I was like, okay, no, this isn't cool anymore. This isn't fun anymore. And when I screamed no, it actually turned and faced me. And like I say that, but no face. And I was like, okay, now I'm genuinely terrified because I've never had something actually react to me yelling at it like that viscerally, like that quickly. Like it could have been a dream, but I wasn't dreaming. I had just gone to the bathroom. I knew I was conscious. And I just got a very ill sense from it. And at this point, I was crying, screaming for Jay to wake up like I didn't know what else to do. And once he woke up, like he heard me, and once he woke up, it was gone. And yeah, and he was dead asleep. Like I was saying things out loud to this thing and he was dead asleep the entire time. But yeah, and then we went grocery shopping this morning, and out of literally nowhere, like a pack of tomatoes flew off the top of a display and exploded at my feet. Um, like just
Huh.
straight up, just I was like, oh, we acting up in public now? Like, I was like, there was no that was, like, stacked, like, there was no one was near me. So yeah, that was the whole experience, I think.
Huh. That's that sounds like some attachment nonsense.
Right.
Yeah, the only real general advice I have is when in doubt, punch a ghost, right?
Yeah, that sounds, especially like if things are starting to move. I mean, not that always entails that exactly. Like I had something move the other day, but like I think the difference here is that was like uh in a lonesome place as I was going to the gym by myself kind of thing. And this time of the year, as we know, hence why there's a parade of spirits and Krampus night, etc. Like spooky season persists way past Halloween. But I think with this though is that I mean, not that you guys need to be told, but I would do some get off of me work if you haven't done it already.
We
For
have,
Jay specifically.
yeah. I haven't done anything yet because it was interesting because like I did eventually wake up, and like normally I'm like a pretty light sleeper, so like normally I would
Mm-hmm.
wake up if I heard Rue talking, but I did eventually wake up, and I was like, and Rue was like, "There's like a thing over near you," and of course me, I'm like, "Are you sure you just didn't see like I have like my robe like hanging on the wall by my bed?" And I'm like, "Are you sure you just didn't like see like like it was just my robe or like the shadow of my robe or whatever?" And no, like the positioning was off, for where it was placed. But I guess it's like these things frustrate me because I have no sense of some attachment. Like I've got nothing. Like I have no.
You won't see the thing about attachment, and I've realized this over many years. You don't always get a sense of it right away.
Mm,
Um, like especially when are the attached. You know what I mean?
the
When
attachee.
you're the one that's attached, yeah. When you're the one that has it, you don't really feel it right away. It takes a while for it to become very apparent, and that's because very similar to a tick, it kind of burrows itself deeper and becomes harder to get out.
Mm,
Um, I mean, right now it sounds very light. I honestly would, approach this in the animist way and be like, look, before we start throwing magical fisticuffs, you know, do you need something? Like, are you here because you saw me and I could give you something?
yeah.
Or, and if you're just here because you think you're going to get, a free meal off of me, then you need to politely leave. And if you don't want to politely leave, I will
I will
impolitely throw
make
you
you.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing I can think is that I pitched the parade of that's where we were yesterday. The parade of spirits. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Um,
thinking too.
I can't be any more like duh.
My
um,
only, yeah. Keep talking. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, if I was to pick up some kind of attachment, I mean, it probably was from there. That's where I was last night. I was also done up. Like, I've never really gotten dressed up for
Which
this
is
event
technically
before.
which is like why my brain is like,
Hey,
that's the only weird thing is like the guising half should have kept you safe.
Mm.
also, like,
Um,
how
yeah,
much do
He
you
really
do
didn't
in
look like him
protection to
at
make
all.
sure that
that too.
how much do you do in protection to make sure that shit doesn't follow you, right? Like I talked that one week about having my little blend of herbs that is sacred, and they can't really touch that stuff without it being really bad for them, and how you would throw sand to keep vampires and other negative spirits away from you by tossing it behind you, right? Because they're compulsed to what was it, count anything that you do or try and discern a message from your actions, right? Because a lot of actions are symbolic. So if you throw like a medicinal thing or like a protective item, like I don't know, rue or woad, I don't know the context
Iron
of those
filling.
culturally specifically. Yeah, iron fillings. When they go to count it, it'll fuck them up and they're not going to follow you because it's like basically just like saying eat shit, motherfucker, and throwing like a powder of follow me and you're gonna get hurt dust, right? It's really helpful, to do something along those lines. Yeah. Although iron filings might be a little hard. Actually, no, it's not. You just fucking get a file and go to town on some scrap metal. So there you go.
Mhm.
This has been a
I
witch PSA.
I will say most likely, like, because I'm glad that Jamie and you were on like the same exact page.
Mm-hmm.
That it probably like you see, like the thing is like the whole point of like spirit parades and stuff like that. I mean, number one, spirit parades
To
have
rustle
been
them up.
discussed throughout. Right, and they're supposed to walk with you during the parade. That's kind of the point of these things. But the guising half is supposed to kind of blend you in with them.
Right.
Um, However,
And
you
he did
know,
not look like when you
Rob
see
didn't even
he's
recognize me at first.
Rob didn't even recognize him. That's how different he looks.
Yeah.
and what should I call it? But the thing is too is that when you have, and we've talked about this on here before as well, like what kind of happens when a bunch of magical minded people come together in one place.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that sort of just all of the presence in one space, it sort of really creates a very large I don't want to say a
Light
tear. Yeah, let's call it a light. Yeah, I like that. Sort of like the light and the darkness analogy thing.
that they're
Yeah,
attracted
it's
to.
yeah, like moths to a flame. Exactly. And I
Yep.
think that when, we go into something sort of especially if we're just like in like festival mindset, and we're not thinking like about certain things ritualistically,
Mm-hmm.
I think that might I don't know what your mindset was, but maybe that was
Yeah.
it.
It
Maybe it was
was.
like fun festival and it's kind of like, didn't think about the ghosties and the goblins that that follow along. I don't know.
Yeah, so like I said, like any of the previous years that I've went, I never really dressed up. I'm not usually that person to get like really dressed up and put makeup on my face and do all these things. But I don't know. This year I felt called to do it because I'm trying to get out of my comfort zones with certain things.
Mhm.
Um, and it was really nice. I decorated my the staff that I picked up from Pagan Pride a couple years ago. I
Yeah.
decorated that all Christmassy and Yule colors and little jinglies on it. Um, so I was really in the festive spirit, festival, I guess, mindset, and really not so much like I don't know. I don't want to say like I wasn't in like a magical mindset because I feel like I am most of the time. Like I felt the magic there. I was seeing like all the land spirits in that little park and everything.
Mhm. Mhm.
And you can definitely tell like which of the people there are the normies and they're just in the neighborhood, and then you can tell which of the people are like the witch magic adjacent, and then you can tell like which ones are like the practitioners. It's kind of like you get it gets easier to tell
Yeah.
as you go on in life. You just learn how to read people.
Mm.
But yeah, and I didn't feel anything. It was just a good vibe overall. And so I was saying to Rue this morning, I was like, well, I'm going through the logical explanations of like either I literally just picked something up, like something just went whoop hitch a ride.
Which it could be that. Mm-hmm.
Right. It could be just something like that. Or it could be like, I don't know, maybe there are people who don't fucking like me and they were at this event and they told something to hitch a ride. And I was like, okay.
It's another
Or
thing too that I was
someone's
also
just trying to
thinking
get tabs, just it could be anything.
Also too, one thing that I've also found really normal for like attachment situations is people will like, how do I put this? It'll be on like a lot of lay people, like a lot of like fair weather practitioners. Not that I'm trying to make fun. I'm trying, for lack of a better word.
Hmm.
They'll have attachments, and because they're not as involved, as like, let's say, me or any of us on the podcast,
Hmm.
they don't, it doesn't really, it's of minimal effect. It's of minimal consequence. They're
Hmm.
not really noticing it's there, and it's very it's kind of like, this is the snack, I guess. It's like, I'll
Yeah.
choose something, and then I noticed that like when it finds a better snack, it'll kind of whoop, that's better,
Right. Yeah, like
and
that's
you kind
something
of bump
juicier.
past it, and it clings to you instead.
Mm-hmm.
I have experienced something like that. So it is possible that you've bumped into somebody who's maybe new to the craft or what have you,
Mm-hmm.
and it just decided, hey, you're more yummy.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so that is possible too. All those things are possible. The good thing is that it doesn't sound like we're at that point of like, you really need to do this thing and it has to be a
Right,
big
like,
deal. It kind of sounds like we're at that point where it's like, this is the beginning stages of something. Just, you know,
yeah, I don't think I
be
need to like
polite, but if
journey to the middle of the ocean and cleanse myself and have the heavens
but
rain
not
down
there
You know
on
yet.
what you can
me.
Yeah.
also You know what you can also do that's not polite, that you don't need to ask any permission for? Double
Mm.
up your words and defenses. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you got something stalking around, like as a good example, I'll often put some on places where I sleep, right? And one of my exes, while we were still together, she had sleep paralysis one day, right? And
Mm.
when the thing entered the room, it started not being able to breathe, and it was like struggling and like fell down on the ground and couldn't get to her. And
Mm.
she was like, she described it as being the weirdest experience, because at first she was terrified and then she just felt bad for the thing.
Mm.
So words and defenses really can help curtail stuff. You don't have to ask something not to be in your space. You can just remove it, right? Now, if something does want to give you information, it shouldn't really trip up your wards if it's doing that, right? You can set them so that something that has malicious intent is going to get bit, instead of just somebody who's saying, "Hi, I'm here,"
Mm-hmm.
Or you can set it so aggressive that it bites anything that comes in with a 2-foot radius, or
See, I
even looks at you.
try, and I know we talk about wards and protection all the time, and it's such a go-to topic in Magic. Everything's for protection. Every rock and herb on the planet is for protection. Not true, but um, but we go to wards and protection a lot, and I am a person that naturally over the years I have built up like a fortress of wards. That giggle. Yeah, and I have, and so I've actually been trying to actively take down some of those wards, because I think that's also what was inhibiting my magic from kind of
Yeah,
radiating
too much
out.
protection.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
you
I
have to be
got
Well,
you.
careful of having too much. But I've
you have to
also
be careful about how you set it. Like
Mhm.
you can set it so you're protected and it allows your stuff to still work, right? But sometimes unintended consequences do happen, right?
Mhm.
Especially if you set the parameters too tight.
Right. And I'll be honest, like I didn't really have a particular ward that I was focusing on. I didn't have a particular protection.
Mm-hmm.
Of the charms that I was wearing, it was this it was like it was an antler, the one that we got from it's Odin's face carved onto the antler.
Mm-hmm.
And then
With
You know,
literally the runes for protection on the other side.
yeah, with
you'd be
protective runes on
surprised
the
at
other
how much
side.
even a little silver and iron will do. They don't even necessarily have to have like iconography on them, although it does help if you have like certain symbols and associations carved into it and done at the appropriate planetary hours. But simply carrying the object on you will also help as well. Like
What
I
if I
have an iron
had?
key, which has its own connotations. Sorry, go
I'm
ahead.
just realizing something. I'm having a little bit of a brain blast. So, what if I had an empty vessel? Right? So my sister made this Krampus ornament out of clay.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a figure of Krampus. It's actually kind of cute. It's got the little kid's little feet sticking out of the backpack. And it's this really cute little Krampus thing, but it was not. It's not a magical item. Like, it was just my sister made this item, and it's a Christmas ornament. But I put it on a string, and I wore it around my neck at the Parade of Spirits yesterday. But it's in the symbol of Krampus, so I'm curious. Like, this thing was not magically charged. It did not have a magical purpose. I literally just wore it for decoration. Could something
Sure.
attach to that? Because that Krampus
Yes.
thing, I had it down here on my desk for the longest time, but now it's hanging in my bedroom on a string.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
No, you go. I'm getting a
No, I'm always on here and chatting. I want to hear from you.
No, absolutely. I think that that's kind of been the the thing, the issue, whatever, with dolls and clay and dolls and puppets and things like they were oftentimes they were originally created for religious and spiritual purposes. Um and the idea that dolls can be haunted is actually pretty old. And when I say dolls, I'm not just talking about cloth dolls, I'm also talking about like pottery and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, and also too, as of like lately, especially and I don't know how historical it is, but as we all know, it's kind of irrelevant. But a lot of people have been sort of working with this sort of spirit of Krampus.
Yeah, especially around this time of year.
Yeah, and so it is very common to be calling up Krampus and or the Krampus, because I think we're supposed to understand them as many, not just one.
Mm-hmm.
So it is possible that
Yeah.
there is a Yuletide spirit tied to your visage of a Yuletide spirit,
Yeah.
which kind of makes sense,
Right.
But this is where it comes into like you and Rue doing that divination thing. You know what I'm saying?
I'm testing it.
Yeah, like testing your theories. You know what's up, right? Like you guys have your own ways of doing that, and so I'm not going to instruct you on any of that. But definitely, like, obviously proceed with caution because spirits can lie, blah blah blah. We all know that. But like,
Oh yeah.
just I mean, yeah, you know the drill. Like, I mean, I don't want to sit here and be like, you're baby witches. You know what I mean? Like, you guys know what's up.
Oh yeah.
You know what's up.
Obviously. No, it's so funny that you would say that because, like, 5 years ago, like, obviously, I would be even more terrified and have absolutely no idea what to do, and I was like, "Oh, no, I just wanna share this story with Scott because I know Scott will enjoy this type of story. I know what to do, and I know, like, I have a pretty clear idea of what I need to do to handle it," and
Oh
I
yeah.
was telling Jay, I feel like I've graduated finally from, like, baby witch to, like, at least, like, intermediate. Is that the next level? Yeah, I know what to do. It was just like it was so crazy that
Yeah,
like I know it was
that's
like the
intense.
first time I had seen something that solid, and I was like, and for it to react to me, and I was like, okay, yeah, we're gonna have to do something about this. Yeah,
That is intense.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. I mean, this is like I always say, it's like this is the season.
Mm.
This is a time for that kind of stuff.
hell yeah.
So
We just
I
watched
yeah, that's
almost
Krampus
want to.
recently too.
I almost want to say that this time of year, I think Christmas Yuletide time is more spooky than Samhain Halloween time.
it's funny that you say that because technically speaking, yes.
Yeah.
Like traditionally, absolutely. I mean, Samhain is spooky, but like the thing is that Samhain marks the sort of the opening of the gate, and then
Yeah.
spring was kind of the closing of the gate.
Mm-hmm.
So like
midwinter is like everything's open season
right,
for the spooky things.
right. So
It's
like
something about that early darkness, that cold, because like you can do spirit work in broad daylight, at noon, high sun. That's fine. Like spirits are there no matter what, but there
oh,
is
always
something
right.
about the nighttime that I don't know. The connection is easier.
So
I'm not sure.
I've always really loved Robin Artison's explanation of this phenomenon. It's
Mm.
always really vibed with me and my folkloric witchery. The whole Summers of Elfame, which I've talked about multiple times on here. The idea that which is it's a very European conceptualization of the spirit world, but the spirit world being a mirror, not an exact copy of our own, and that when it's spring here, it's fall there. When it's summer here, it's
The upside down.
winter here. But when it's winter
so
here,
Australia.
yes,
the spirit world is Australia.
um,
people living in Australia, I guess the spirit world is North America. I don't know.
Yep, vice versa.
But yeah, so like it's this sort of upside down, this inverse, right? And because it's essentially summer or almost summer, although the ancient perception there was no between seasons. There was early winter, and then there was early summer and summer, right? But nowadays we have fall and spring and whatever. But yeah, I tend to stick to that's why. Like we're more social in the summer. We're going to the beach. We're going to shore houses and whatever.
Barbecues and block parties.
Yeah, barbecue. Yep. And then in the winter, sure, we gather in our homes, huddled for warmth and comfort. We're all into our snuggly outfits and our oversized hoodies and our fleece blankets. Yeah, and I think that's that's how I like to see it, but that's just my perception of it. You know what I mean?
It is increasingly frustrating to me that I keep encountering spirit-based things in my practice and my craft. Like, I'm trying to, I guess, level up my skills and my knowledge in that department, but I still struggle. I'm still like, I can't. Like, it's almost like I want like ring spirit phone. Hello, like.
Yeah.
I mean, like. What were you saying, Sophia?
Oh, go ahead.
No, please, Sophia, please. I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. One thing I realized in a trip one time is that like spirits are there whether or not I respect them or acknowledge their existence. And the fact that I've been very how do I put it? Matter of fact and like materialist and like, oh, if it can't prove to me it's real, it's not real, was like very rude and dismissive of things that I couldn't necessarily perceive and very like human centric. And when I had that experience realization, I was like, oh fuck, they're always there anyways, and they're always watching whether or not I can see them. I just need to learn to fucking act with respect, period, end. Right. And since I did that, spirit working's been way better and way easier, but like good goddamn before that things would just happen randomly and it would seem spooky and out of touch and things. And now the wildest shit happens and I'm like, yeah, okay, it's a message, I get it.
I think I'm sort of like in the in-between phase of that because I used to be very like I just like I can't see them, I can't hear them, I can't smell them, I can't, so like therefore prove it to me that you exist, you know what I mean? If I can't see you and so I'd be very like testy, and that's why I was very like about like paranormal research and paranormal science and stuff like that because I just I was like, I need something real. Like, I always say, like, I want God to come down and be like, hello. I want, Casper the ghost to be like, hello. But I understand that it doesn't work like that. You know what I mean? Like, especially if you want it to work like that. They're not going to do that. That's just not how they fucking work. So, like, I used to be very kind of like that. And I'm I'm changing, I'm evolving, you know, like I couldn't imagine. I think it would be very fun to talk to myself 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago in my craft. It would be fun to talk to myself then as me now.
Yeah.
Shit would be pretty wild. But yeah, I'm somewhere in between that, because what I started to do, like, as I started to kind of just like talk to the spirits, like I will literally just kind of like talk to myself quietly, like if I'm by myself. So it all started with having our ancestor altar in the downstairs area, and I make a cup of coffee. You know, like whenever I make a pot of coffee, I put a cup out for them. And like that has helped me in terms of, I guess, like familial spirits and sort of ancestral spirits like that. But again, like they don't materialize in front of me, and they don't say hey, and they don't like I still want that. And so like there's still a part of me that's like, yeah, well, I mean, you could like prove it one time. Like just once. Like you could do it
Well,
once, you know.
here's a question. Here's a question. Let's say that it did happen, right?
Mm.
Do you really think you're going to be comfortable with the experience, or are you going to question how seeing a full-bodied figure that other people can't experience is going to affect your social standing and how people think of you in the modern social situation?
And I think about that too. And I'm like, all right, so what happens? I see some full body apparition of either someone I
Like,
know or
I
don't
don't.
know, right? Like,
I
how do
look.
I handle
I'll be
that?
real with you. I'll be real with you. I don't get it all the time, but I occasionally do, and it freaks me the fuck out when I see somebody that other people can't. Right? And it's not like I'm over here. I'm not schizoaffective, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like occasionally, I was in a house one time in Vancouver, um, and I was home by myself, and it was like very small basement suite. There's like a living room on one side, and then there's like a single hallway that goes down, and down the hallway there's like two bedrooms and a bathroom, right? Um, I'm in one of the bedrooms, and I have the door open, and this house was like ludicrously haunted. My door would open all the fucking time by itself. It would freak people out on video calls when it happened, and I'd just be like, "Oh god damn it, stop it!" Sort of thing, right? Because like, what am I gonna do? Freak out? If
Right,
it
yeah.
happens all the time, it just becomes normal, right? But anyways, I saw this like old Asian woman walk down the fucking hallway, and I just turned my head, looked, and got up, and I thought somebody had actually walked into the house. So I followed her into my mom's room, and I'm like, hello? And then there was nobody in there, and I was like, oh, what the serious fuck? Because the door was still locked and there was no signs of entry, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like you occasionally do, but you feel you don't feel great when it happens. You learn to accept it, but it's not the happy fun time cool specialness that we always see on TV, like with how our society ostracizes the other and really bastardizes queerness and anything that differs from like the main social narrative. Straight up perceiving something like a magical reality that's not necessarily visible without like close study or learned practice of it. Trying to describe that experience to somebody is a miserable fucking time, because people will basically treat you like you have some kind of mental illness because they don't actually want to hear you out for what your experience was or talk to you about it. It's easier for their cognitive bias and how their worldview fits to think that you're delusional and you belong in a mental health institution rather than what you're experiencing having any like credence or reality, right? So like it's good on the surface, but like let's also talk about how it's not a fucking cakewalk, right?
Right, and I think there's a part of me that wants that feeling of genuine discomfort and terror and fear and
Yeah,
all
because
of
that's what it
that,
is.
because it's not, I'm not like an adrenaline junkie by any
Me either.
means. Like I don't really seek thrills and stuff. But like I like everything good. Oh, I saw a room. Oh. The TV was on. Anyway, yeah, like I'm not a thrill seeker. I'm not an adrenaline junkie. But when it comes to, but I kind of am in the realm of the occult. I guess when it comes to magic and the occult.
That's because you're curious.
Yeah,
That's
like I'm
because
just
like
painfully
that's
curious.
the right,
Like
but
people are like
that's
this
the
magical fire is hot, and I'm like, eh.
but I think that that's what makes us what we are, right?
Yeah.
Like we wouldn't be taught, we wouldn't even have this podcast if we didn't sort of like, like, do you know how many times when I was younger and trying all this stuff out for the first time, I got scared?
Mm-hmm.
I've told many stories about it. I don't know if any of you remember my candle story where I was doing a binding and the candle kept going on and off, on and off. And it would blow all the way out and then come back on. And I
And you're
wasn't even
like,
doing it. I was
hello.
just sitting here. I was just chanting, right? Like, like we wouldn't be here, kind of like, ooh, pretty fire, like
Yeah.
if, but like that, I think that fire is it's part of it. We're supposed to let ourselves be consumed in it, right? I think that it's wonderful that you use that analogy, whether you meant to or not, right? Like that's kind of the whole point. It's supposed to engulf us in it. That's where we find our transformation. That's where, the witch, the occultist, the practitioner, that's where that's what we're going for anyway. So I think like it's not even necessarily adrenaline. I get where you're coming from. Sorry everybody, my mom's the cat.
All good.
I apologize. What should I call it? I think that like one of the things I wanted to suggest to you, Jay, was studying classical necromancy, like Greek and Roman, and like the grimoires, like the particularly of necromancy. They're a little wordy,
Yeah.
and you might have to sit there with like a notebook and be like, okay, what the hell are you talking about? You know what I mean? Because obviously some of the words are going to be historical and completely outdated now. But I mean, if like I feel as if that
I'm very
if
excited because within the Gray School, there is an entire department of ceremonial magic. And I'm very grateful for that because I'm very excited to study ceremonial magic from people that are not assholes and people with a certain level of I've studied this for X amount of time. I am teaching this to you there is no tradition here, there is no gods here. It is just I am teaching you ceremonial magic. Like because it's a messy topic to kind of teach yourself. I think it's been difficult for me to teach myself.
It is. I mean, from the only way I can relate, and I think it's a good relation though, is the folk magic way.
Right.
I mean, I think one of the things, particularly for pagan or multi-faith practitioners, is like the Christian element
Yeah.
of certain sorcerers practices and traditions, and I think that can that alone creates a difficulty because there's a lot of like religious trauma that one has to get over,
That's
and
the
then being
block.
queer that makes it harder.
That's
you
the block
know
I've gotten over is the religious part of it.
yeah
The polarity of the male female part, I can roll with that. I can deal with it.
yeah
I get it. Whatever. Because I know that there's always an in between, and the in
right.
between is magic itself. So honestly, non-binary people, you are magic. So there you go. There you are.
And anybody who is trans or queer or
Yeah.
transgresses boundaries that are healthy to transgress. Not all boundaries should be transgressed. We shouldn't necessarily be cooking up any other people.
What? Don't cook other people? Is that what I heard? Do
That
not
one.
cook other people.
That's a big taboo, yeah.
Yeah, if you're cooking other people, shit's really fucked up. And we're probably not
Although
podcasting at that point.
although we do have to be careful because there are traditions of like eating ceremonial ash
I
of others. The agori.
I can't.
I don't want to be
I
respectful.
can't. I know, but like where I come from, it's like the biggest taboo, and like
See, that's so interesting about people.
it repulses me on like an existential level, and it always has.
I understand. I do. I don't want to be. I totally get it.
I'm not
If
gonna say that their traditions are invalid. I'm just stating how I feel.
totally, absolutely.
Oh, the song
And
of
the Agoria are
cannibals.
hard as fuck. If you haven't looked into the Agoria, it's spelled Agohri, I believe.
What were you saying,
I
bro?
think it's something like that. I have a hard time. I don't even know if I'm
Yeah.
pronouncing it correctly. But
No, it is Agori.
oh, okay.
They're people who live. Do you know what Stoicism is in the classical
Oh my god, Rue was saying
philosophical sense?
something. Oh no,
Hmm?
well,
I'm
I
sorry.
think Rue had a thing to say.
It
Or
was just it
oh,
was just a sideline. I was just like all this talk of cannibalism. I was like all I was thinking of was we watched the Winnie the Pooh movie and how poor Winnie and Piglet had to eat Eeyore and Tigger.
Ugh.
What?
Winnie the
Pooh went into the
Pooh.
public domain. They
So
made
they
a
made a
horror
horror
movie.
movie.
Oh
It's
yeah,
Winnie the
yeah.
Pooh, Blood and Honey. It's honestly so bad it's good. Watch it. Sorry, you were saying, Sophia?
Oh fuck, where was I?
The Agori, I think is what you're talking about. Agori?
Yeah, okay, so right, Stoicism. So when we hear of someone being sorry, not Stoicism, cynicism. When we talk about cynicism, usually someone is considered just like negative unnecessarily. Like, oh, you're so cynical, right? But
Yeah.
being cynical and cynicism, I don't believe are the same thing. And if they are, then cynicism is often misunderstood or greatly conflated. Cynics are people who are suspicious or tend to reject large, sweeping societal norms, right? I think I've talked about this before on the podcast. But like Diogenes is one of the guys who's really commonly associated with being a exemplar of the cynicist mentality. If you know Plato's speech that a human is a featherless biped, and then Diogenes of Athens thrown in say with a plucked chicken saying, "Behold a man." Yeah, that's you know the story of the guy that I'm talking about then, right?
I don't know
So
that particular story, but I know of Plato and his writings and teachings.
Diogenes also he was basically a homeless guy who lived in the market district who was kind of fucked up and like was caught masturbating in public and like just made a comment of like, oh, if only it was so easy to end world hunger. So like maybe he's not the best guy and it's not like he's just I don't think that anybody should just be like blankly taken for like only the good they've done or taken blankly for only the bad they've done. Like I think unless someone's
We're
done
not
like pretty much
one-dimensional.
just bad. Yeah, unless someone's done like pretty much just bad things, then we can absolutely call them the shit
Bad.
heel that they are.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it's yeah, it's a thing. Life is complicated and I don't like being reductive. It's one of my least favorite things. Yeah, what was I saying though? Right. So cynicism and the rejection is essentially the rejection of um popular thinking or popular movements, right? So like I really like pop, but I don't like Britney Spears, nor do I like what's her name? Taylor Swift and Britney Spears, Taylor Swift, Spice Girls, like really big popular artists with a lot of people, I tend to reject rather than embrace. The exception to this is like Lady Gaga, but she's also like extremely queer, so it's hard to not embrace somebody like that when you're also queer. So yeah.
I realize that
Sorry, I didn't wanna...
I have very niche interests, and sometimes my niche interests even go into niche spaces within those spaces. Like I realize that because with our shop with Twix Occult Supplies, I realize it's going to take a while for that to grow and build and grow into something of a sizable nature, because if you look at the majority of the people selling items within the occult, new age, pagan, witchy sort of circuit, it's not exactly what I have. You know what I mean? Like I'm selling like magic supplies as opposed to more aesthetic sort of things, I guess.
Yeah, and a lot of people want the aesthetic shit.
Yeah, which is fine because I also buy the aesthetic shit, so it's fine. But I just realized that like something like that is going to take more time to build and like let people know that it even exists and whatnot. So I just realized, or also with like I've been thinking about maybe studying more with Rob's group, the Urglava group, because if I was to study anything that has a direct sort of ancestral link to my ancestry, it would be Pennsylvania Dutch heathenry, which is Rob's group, or the Urglava tradition. But I realize now within like the larger heathen community, the Urglava, they kind of talk about them like they're idiots and they don't know what they're talking about. Like a lot of people shit on them, because they're like a very niche part of heathen traditions, even though heathen traditions are niche if you look at world religions overall. So I just find that really funny about myself, that I'm always looking, I'm always like, I don't know, it's not like I'm trying to be a hipster about everything that I'm interested in, but it just happens that way.
Yeah, sometimes it does.
I kind of often feel like that, like studying like folk witchcraft and folk magic often makes me feel like that too. Especially originally, because like, I mean, for me, I got into it. I got into it at a time when it was very popular, and kind of, how like Hecate is like a, it's fad to, I'm a child of Hecate,
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, shut up.
Yeah. You're like, okay.
You are going to rub salt in that wound.
Wow.
Oh yeah,
I'm just saying. Not that I personally. No. Not that I'm personally upset by what Scott's saying, because like I was actually working with her before she was like a big fad and everything. She became a big fad because of Sabrina the Teenage Witch and a lot of other shit. I was called to her like.
It made me love Hecate even more.
Yeah, 2018 is when I started working with her. So that was like quite a bit before Sabrina. Just saying. What were you gonna say, Scott?
Oh no, I disassociated. Crap.
I'm sorry.
No, it's
I hate
okay.
it when that happens.
Hold on. I was making a point of like,
you're saying that you're getting
so like sometimes like practicing folk witchcraft, and it kind of can sometimes feel like that. Like I remember when I started getting into like traditional witchcraft, with like the rise of Sarah Ann Lawless and Gemma Gary. I remember it was, like it was one of those things that I kind of had to learn to embrace over time, because I used to get real mad when people were like, oh, you're just doing it because, and it really wasn't an aesthetic for me. I genuinely found something that worked really, really well for me. But for a lot of people, it was like, the
Harry
witchiest
Potter.
of witchy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this is like that folk horror witchcraft, like, I'm gonna read the entrails of a magpie, like that kind of thing. And it's like, I was like, hell yeah, like your witchcraft is never witchier than this, like, and as cool as that was, as cool as that idea was, and I felt it, like you said, like, how you said, like, I still buy the aesthetic shit,
Yeah.
but there's still that other thing, right? That's sort of like the deeper thing. And it was very similar. Sure, the aesthetic was really cool. The sticks and stones and animal bones, that's awesome as an aesthetic. But when you're like really looking for something that's that you connect with really well, a system of magic that really, really works for you. You know what I mean? And that's just kind of like this thing that I had to wrestle with, where it's like, is it okay, that it's like this? And I hated the perception of my interest in it being just purely for an aesthetic. You get what I'm getting at.
Yeah, because
I forget what the point of it was, but
it's kind of like you start to second guess yourself because of societal norms. Like it's like a dumb sort. It's like you try to brainwash yourself back into the bullshit, because in a way, like your life will be 1,000 times easier if you just pretend and go with the flow and la la la, right? Easier, sure, in the sense of getting through life, but will you be happier? No. Like, you're not going to be happier as a person. You're not going to feel fulfilled, or whatever that word is that that we're looking for. But yeah, you're definitely, it'll be easier to go with the flow and the status quo. But no, if you're one of the weird people and you don't pursue your weird interests, it's not going to be a good time for you. You're gonna have a life that's not going to be great. And and I'm not saying like follow your dreams and you'll get rich. Like, no, I cannot guarantee you that because I'm following my dreams and I ain't rich. But I do feel good about what I'm doing. I'm really trying to not second guess the things I'm doing. I mean, we're 124 episodes strong in this podcast, So, like with anything, with any magical endeavor, just probably the weirder it is probably, that just means it's cooler. That's all. The less people interested in it, I think, the cooler it is.
You know what though? I think like even to this day, right? Like I noticed this on TikTok, for instance. When TikTok first came out, certain things were like there was I don't even know if they were trends. It was more like clicks. But it was weird because the cool, like the to me, who were like the cool trad witches who were trying to teach like folkloric magic and traditional witchcraft, they did not have as many followers as sort of the eclectic, witches, and even the very few like Luciferian people that are on there. Coincidentally, of course, they're with the whole becoming a living god shenanigans.
Yeah.
And it's funny because they were the ones that get all the attention, and then like the trad witches who were trying to come in with like
real
a little
shit.
bit of like some logic and reason meets mysticism and animism, and like they're like and I'm like, what is wrong with you people?
So
I gotta go on a rant about this. This comes back to how you were talking about how we mentioned that people want to buy the aesthetic items rather than the practice items, but the aesthetic items are harder to get in stock in the shop. So here's the thing that I think that we could talk about a little bit more in the witchcraft community. It's not a club. It's not a style. Like, there is a style associated with it, don't get me wrong, but witchcraft's not an aesthetic. It's not a club. It's not a social group. It's a fucking very deep and personal practice and relationship between the individual, their relationships of spirits, guides, gods, goddesses, lua, or otherwise, or other beings that I don't even know about because of my exposure to the world. It's an intensely personal thing that is entirely dependent on the practitioner, and it should be genuine in their own pursuit of understanding and whatever is ultimately relevant to them. It is not a fucking style. It is not a fucking aesthetic. It can look good aesthetically, and it can certainly be motherfucking stylish. Don't get me wrong, it is. But at the same goddamn time, like, it's the same thing as what we were talking about there. The eclectic witch gets more views because it's easy to do one small thing and be like, oh, yeah, I'm a witch. I manifest. I put up a vision board. Like, you know what? On one side, I'm actually glad they can tell me something that they do for real, for real. Like, if they actually can say that they put up vision boards, I'm like, okay, cool. I understand where you're at. And you're like honest about it, right? What really chaps my ass is when somebody really tries to put themselves on like they're a fucking practitioner when they're not really doing anything. Like we talked about the guy earlier today. He knew what his tattoos were and where they came from. I'm not gonna ask him fucking everything about his practice and how he does his shit, right? I'm not gonna fucking question 20 him, but it's clear enough that he knows enough about where he's taking it from to fucking respect it, right? Same thing like when I ask somebody about like a rune they use and what their personal relationship to it is, if I'm curious about it, right? They'll often have like a decent answer. They'll typically won't just say it was for style. And even if they say it was for style, I'll give them points because they're honest, right? I hate it when they say, "Oh, I'm a witch. I do sigil work," and I'm like, "Okay, but like, what's your relation with this rune in specific, right?" And they don't want to talk about it because a lot of people are like pretending that they're doing something, right? And they're not, and that's the thing that fucking kills me, right? Like we don't need to be out here putting ourselves on like we're something that we're not, because witchcraft is fucking statistically trendy right now. Okay, that is a incredibly toxic way to approach an incredibly sacred and life-changing practice that can and will absolutely transform your life from what you thought it was going to be into something completely different. But you have to be open to the experience, and you can't be thinking that you're greater than it or you get to fucking steer the whole goddamn ship, because you're going to be learning a lot and you're going to be seeing a lot and you're going to be changing, right? It's not just this, I come in and I look like a witch, therefore I am, and I'm better than other people so I can look down my nose at them. Or it's not this, I come into a witchcraft group and nose my way up through a fucking coven and become popular in it, and therefore I have clout and therefore I'm a good witch, right? All of those are incredibly derisive practices that like lower the bar for what we actually have as a community and individual practitioners, and I'm very tired of seeing it pass off as actual practice.
I agree, and a lot of this comes down to like one of the big things that I do want to build, and I encourage other people to build similar things in their local areas, is I come back to my idea of Keystone Temple, right? Is this idea that it could be a meeting ground for all the different covens, the practitioners, the different groups, whatever. Select 2 people, have them be your mouthpieces to come to these meetings, and we can all kind of like talk to each other and like learn from each other, as opposed to like being on the internet behind these walls and just being like, oh, well, you're not doing this right, oh, you're not doing that, well, in my practice we do this. Okay, great, in your practice you do that. That's all you have to say. In my practice I do this.
Right, because this is how the system was designed, so therefore this is how it works specifically in my practice.
Exactly.
Well, also we're emotional people, and the thing is, it's hard to fully endorse an emotional reaction from a response too, right? Like we're not perfect robot. People will have shock and like maybe even disgust if practice are super different, especially when talking about like the cannibalism thing there, right? Um like sometimes having one thing I'm learning to do more as I get older is have space for me to have an emotional reaction to something instead of being mad at myself for being upset at something, because that's just another form of like Victorian shaming, right? But yeah, I do need to have control over how I respond so that I don't act irresponsibly and hurt people. But I am allowed to be frustrated. I am allowed to be mad as long as I'm not making it into something that is then going to cause harm to other people or undue stress, right? I'm allowed to be frustrated. And if I want to remove myself from a situation because of it, that is an extremely reasonable response, right? It's not okay to yell at people. It's not okay to like cause damage and do violence in response to your anger unless it is actually warranted for the situation. Like, say someone's trying to cause harm. But you're allowed to fucking be frustrated and be pissed off. And sometimes it will come out in your words, and that's okay because we're human. We're not robots, and we shouldn't beat ourselves up. We should just try to be better. That's all.
Yeah, you don't have to be perfect. Just, it's okay to like one of the things I wanted to say too was like, and even if you mess up with that, like let's say you do accidentally take it out on somebody, you can always apologize. You know what I mean? And just move forward. Like
and an apology does so much more, because anybody in the world can have a bad reaction to something, but to have the emotional maturity and respect to apologize to somebody is, in my personal opinion, I would respect that person a lot more than somebody who hadn't caused a mistake and actually rectified it.
Absolutely, I agree.
That is very true.
Because it's so easy to hurt people unintentionally, and most harm is unintentional from people who aren't wielding institutional power as a weapon, right? And racism is an institutional power, let's be clear.
Absolutely.
I was you're right though. I was just circling back to when you were talking about TikTok originally, like how when the witch talk community that popped up, it did seem like there was like cliques and sort of
Mm-hmm.
cults around certain personalities.
Yep.
Um
Very much so.
and you notice a lot of those people they got burned out. I think the people that were spreading the real information, they got burned out really quickly,
Yep.
and so they don't post as much. And that's, I think, why I have kind of avoided TikTok for as long as I have. I kind of want to dip my toes into it because it does have this sort of shop integration feature. So I was thinking of toying around with creating videos that were educational about the products that I create, but also they function like an ad, right? To buy
Mhm.
the thing if you're interested. So I think that might do well on TikTok, but then again, I'm also gonna pose myself as an educator, and then people are gonna be mad about it, because we get mad about sharing information.
I know two people. Coincidentally, I met these people from the heyday of Tumblr.
Low.
So this is like once again during the Sarah Ann Lawless rise of Jemigari era. Um, I still follow both of them. One of them I've actually talked to. His name is Eric Jaffords. He's really cool. He's an initiated traditional Wiccan and trad witch folk practitioner. Um, as he likes to remind people, you can do both. And which he's right. And the other guy, he lives in Salem. I don't remember his name off the top of my head. I can see his face because I follow. He does not talk about the craft anymore. To talk about burnout, he pretty much was just like after Tumblr, because he used to post a lot. He taught me all about like the red meal. He taught me so much, and he is awesome. His art is great. He makes like these like little goblin statues and stuff.
Mm.
He's awesome, and he does not talk about sorcery anymore online. He participates, he does his thing. He still practices, but um, that whole burnout thing, it's real. Especially because what started to happen when
No.
when this because as we talked before, the witchcraft booms were normal for a long time. This is an abnormal boom
It is.
in interest because it's the longest without any sort of sign of slowing down. Normally it would be like a year and a half to 2 years, and then it would curve down, but this is just like it keeps going and going and going, but now it's going in a weird direction that's making a lot of people uncomfortable. But we're not talking about that. But yeah, he started to get a lot of pushback.
Mm.
When he would talk about how he was one of the people. Him and Eric and me, we were having a conversation on Tumblr one time about how people treat gods and herbs as just like correspondences. Like,
Yeah,
You
I
were
do
like
remember.
alchemical parts.
like, yeah, and it's like, oh well, you use this herb for this and this god for this. And all three of us were talking about how, like, number one, herbs have numen. They have like tutelaries inside of them. You know what I mean? Like little gods inside of them. You have to respect them. They're not just going to give you their virtues because you think that they ought to. I don't know, whatever that think
You
is.
have to like ask and petition them, and they have to give it to you.
Right, you have to respect it. And I remember one time we were having there was a guy on there who he was kind of full of himself. He was a ceremonial magician, and he was like, he hate this guy. I don't even remember this guy's name, but he hated the tradcraft movement. He hated it
Right.
with fire and fury and passion. And he's like, this folk magic stuff. He was like, he would talk about he's like, even to the older magicians, like folk magic was soothsaying, it was fake. Um, the sort of the peasant magic, it wasn't real. The real magic is in the tables and the squares and the kamea, and you get the idea.
Mm-hmm.
and he was
That's
like,
like saying my karate can beat up your kung fu.
That's literally
well,
what
you know,
it
and
is.
this guy would go on these like long, like he would write these essays, these pompous, like flowery worded essays about why he was right and all this other stuff. And I remember I was polite. Back then, of course, I was completely untherapized, so I really couldn't hold an argument like I can now. But I tried to in my very childlike, you know, because Scotty was fronting most of the time back then, and I tried to explain it the best way I guess a child could. But thankfully, Eric and the other guy whose name I cannot remember at the moment, they both came in and were like, "This is why you're wrong, and we're gonna read you for filth, and this is what it is." And you know, he tried doing his like, well, I'm the straight guy here, and all you queer mo trad witches are wrong. And you know what I mean to
Okay.
say is he tried to talk over us. You know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
Mm-hmm.
His opinions were more right because his cisgendered straightness. He tried all that, and it was kind of heated. And it was like soon after that, the guy whose name I can't remember, he was off of Tumblr, and he was on Instagram mostly. And then even then, he was like, I can't talk about Magic anymore. He's like, I am exhausted. And then Eric, he ended up getting off of TikTok because he's like, no one listens.
Yeah.
That was my because it was him, and there was this other um woman. She was so nice. Me and her were talking too, and she was a sabbatic trad witch.
Mm.
Um, you know, like Kane and Malak Toss and all that.
Mm.
And she was trying to get out there, and people just didn't want to hear it. You know, like and it was mostly, you know, a lot of these people, it was, in my perception, it was because traditional witchcraft,
It's hard.
it one, it's hard because it's a
Yeah.
lot of work.
Mm.
Two, it didn't appease to the sort of like hate Wicca thing,
Mm.
you know, and it was kind of like, you know, for a lot of them, they were like, well, this isn't what I hear about European witchcraft, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, number one, traditional witchcraft and traditional Wicca are sister traditions. Um, they're about the same age anyway. Um, there's that. I said, two, what you think Wicca is, you have no clue. I
Right.
was like, unless you're initiated in, it's literally a mystery tradition. So
Mm-hmm.
unless you're initiated, you don't know. And they're like, well, they burn sage. No, they don't. No, they don't.
Yeah.
Sorry. Traditional
Mm-hmm.
Wiccans do not burn sage. You can say it until you're blue in the face. You're still wrong.
Right.
It has nothing to do with the tradition. And that's why like people now, like Thumper, his name is Thumper Forge,
Mm-hmm.
he tries to like to show people there's a difference between, like, you know, trad Wicca, trad craft, and this sort of modern, what you see as like the, you know, the modern new age witchcraft eclectic Wicca thing that is happening, right? There's a difference there.
There is.
um you know, the appropriation happens on that side, not the other
Yes.
side, you know what I'm
That's
saying? And
yeah,
that's
like that's
something that
the
a lot of
yeah.
young people have a hard time with, and I think it's because they wrestle with how to, where to put those feelings, you know what I mean? They wrestle with that, and then they just sort of, you know, they disregard anything that they can't fight against and only attack that one thing, and then just disregard everything else. That's how I perceive it. But yeah, that's why it's
It's
exhausting. So
it's a
sorry,
little
everybody. I went on
bit
a tangent.
no, it's fine. It's a little bit like a cult. Like I've been watching some cult documentaries. Been back on my
Mm-hmm.
cult
Oh my
bullshit.
god, I've been in 3 cults. Lol.
So,
What?
the one that stood out to me was actually there was two. I watched the one about the twin flame fucking shit. The twin flame
Nasty motherfuckers.
motherfuckers.
What
I
documentary
think
were
I
you
could.
watching this from?
They were both on Netflix.
Mm-mm.
Okay, cool.
No,
Netflix is a good source.
I
No,
can't
no, just saying
remember.
for documentaries, if
Mm,
you watch it on Netflix, It's fine. It's just there's been a lot of plagiarism on YouTube recently that people have been talking about. It's like one of the hot button things that people are talking about after the H Bomber guy video. So just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure it wasn't
Yeah, I
like a
really haven't.
plagiarized content
I don't really
thing.
watch much YouTube lately. I usually just use YouTube Music, but yeah, it was
One
the
was
twin.
one was on Netflix, one was on Max.
One was Max.
There you go.
Yeah, so one
Those are usually
was
pretty reliable because they have to be done in like a network setting.
yeah, like the Twin Flame one that infuriated me for a whole another level. I feel like I could do a whole separate episode on that one.
We should.
Long story short, they're forcing people to transition, and I want to go over there with pitchforks and torches. But anyway, that's a whole other episode. But the other one was the Mother God documentary. This woman, she has a hard life, going through a shit time, and she's just like, I'm Mother God now, bitches, and bow down to me, all love, partying, drugs, everything that you could ever want. Just make sure Mother God is happy. You know, and she had no real dogma. She had no real playbook. It was just party with Mother God. Mother God loves all her children kind of thing. And I can't fault those people. And I almost can't fault her. You have to watch the whole documentary to understand the whole scope of the situation. But in that way, like, she was a person that was deeply hurt. She got fucked over in life. She just had some she just got it from all angles. And she was just looking for love and how to spread love in her own way. It just kind of fucked up in the way that love was spread, but she was trying to spread love in her own way. And I really can't blame those people for believing in her and loving her and following her. And I kind of feel like it's a little bit similarly to how people, like young people, get roped up in the eclectic, every god is your god, every rock is for protection, sort of witchcraft that has kind of popped up. I can't blame them for attaching themselves to it. I can't
Where do you
do
come
it.
up with those words? Every rock is for protection. Every god is your god.
I just said that.
Are they direct quotes?
No, they're not a direct quote from anywhere, but it's sort of like a vibe that is kind of going around. Like, you pick a god, and that's your god.
Yeah.
Every crystal's for protection. If you look up, type in any crystal on fucking Google, properties of blah blah blah, some website will tell you it's for protection, no matter what the rock is. Just like every plant's for healing, every single one. So like there's and protection. So there's like, it's a vibe, but I can't blame people for getting attached to it, because it's like I said to Rue. Here's the thing. Everyone is looking for God. Everyone's looking for spiritual something. Everyone is looking to fill whatever that void is inside of them.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, people are lazy. And so they are going to take the shortest of shortcuts that are presented to them. And so if the way to salvation, if the way to love, if the way to filling that void is Mother God, or if the way to that void is 7 boxes of rocks, of shiny rocks in your bedroom, or if that's burning a bonfire of sage, which I don't recommend, it's terrible, but like, you know what I mean? Like, no matter what that shortcut is, people are going to take it. The majority of people are going to take it.
But that's the problem, is like, that's that emptiness. And I know we're pushing an hour and a half here and we have to wrap up soon, but that's that emptiness inside of people that causes people to like genocide other people for their land, or like fucking steal other people's resources. Like, there is this deep hollowness that can set into human beings when you let it, where it's like a greed and a selfishness and a lack of care for others, and we become literal fucking monsters who will like strip the lands and kill our own family members and vote for parties that'll take their rights away and just do all these really fucked up things simply because we don't have our shit together and we don't actually understand that it's affecting us on that level. We think that it's cool. We feed into it. We buy too many things and squirrel them away, or like when there's free items, we all fucking take 1,000,000 of them so that the first 5 people there get a like lifetime supply, but then like everybody else is fucked, you know? Like
Mm-hmm.
we
Yeah.
always do it because all it takes is one person to start doing it, right? And then everybody else says, well, if you're going to do it, why should I not do it? And if no one's going to impose some kind of regulation, like everybody gets 5 of them, for example, if no one's going to impose that and one person just starts grabbing everything, other people start doing it. And suddenly we turn into fucking ravenous beasts and strip everything bare. And it's like kind of the same shit that happens with TikTok, right? The
Mm-hmm.
best word I could use to describe it is it's fucking ravenous. You turn it on and it roars at you. It plays a video that it's recommended based off of an algorithm that is suited to get you engaged immediately and get you pulled into a mind splinter with the max amount of focus that it can to keep you for the longest amount of time possible watching new content, right? And it's shady as fuck. Like, let's talk about how TikTok's in bed with ADHD medication manufacturers and how there's a lot of ADHD TikTokers who spread like personality quirks as though they're like ADHD habits. That's really fucking
Mm.
harmful. Oh my god,
Mm.
there's so much shady shit that's going on right now with that kind of stuff, right?
That
And
could be like a whole other episode because I would love to delve into. I hate to sit like a blank, but like everyone is ADHD and autistic now, and there's like this
well, no,
weird, and it
autism's
feels like
okay,
people
so
are kind of
autism's a
peddling certain
thing that
things.
has gone underdiagnosed for a hot minute, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
ADHD, I'm not a doctor, but like
Only
so
little boys were
because
ever looked at for ADHD.
let me explain briefly. What happens is as we go on in society, there's going to be new neuroses that develop in response to whatever's happening, right? And if we live in an increasingly fractured world run by giant tech conglomerates that are allowed to use distractive media and fractured mind space and like do all of these really fucking exploitative practices because no one's going to hold them in check, people are going to develop bad mental health responses as a response to that, right? Because like it's a symptom of the society that you live in, right? You can't be perfectly mentally healthy in a society that's profoundly fucked up and exploits you on every level. You're going to get some kind of bad reaction to that, right? And as we learn more about that stuff, and as we learn more about different types of like ways of being and mental health stuff, we're going to find new conditions that have been there the whole time, but that have just never been diagnosed before. And then you spread awareness about it, and people realize they have it. And it may all of a sudden seem like 1,000,000 people are trending and doing it, but eventually the numbers do steady out, right? Not everybody's going to be autistic for forever, but there is a great amount of people who are autistic who did not go with diagnosis because of what happens with like medical bias in the 1990s when parents don't want to take their family or their kids to a shrink because oh then they're just going to medicate you and institutionalize you, which really did fucking happen back in the time too, right? So it was hard to get resources for anybody who's divergent or different because society punishes anything that doesn't specifically go along with a norm that is very deliberately tailored to generate profit for those at top because we live in a society where we're all fucking human cattle. Like, let's be real, right? So we are going to have more mental health issues develop. We are going to have more conditions that have always been there that we're finally going to have language and the ability to describe, and people are going to recognize like fuck, maybe we find an illness that's causing chronic fatigue and it explains why everybody's so fucking tired and we can fix it all of a sudden,
It's
right?
called
Like here's another
capitalism.
good example. Yeah, well, of course, and burnout, but here's another thing too. Like
Mhm.
autistic people like me, we have higher elevations of the toxin in the Amazonian toad that you lick that makes you hallucinate. We have on average 3 times more than the average human being does, and we've known about this fact since the 1970s. So like we're still learning shit about biology, and we've had information that because of like cognitive biases and the people who like oversee data and like work on these type of institutions that they'll overlook, right? And also, we live in a society where the people who have the money often enough to go to school and study these things come from already privileged backgrounds, and they're often beheld to their own interests, right? People who come from differing backgrounds are going to be more motivated to look into different things because it affects their own communities differently, right? And in that way, because we've like made education a feature of your class in society rather than like the amount of time and effort you're willing to put into it, we don't even have the ability to address cognitive bias on an institutional level because it's already being set up so that people who are like systematically disenfranchised can't engage with the system at the same like financial level, right? Because they don't have that backing. They don't have that ability to just eat all the food they want whenever they need it, or like fucking order Uber Eats because they're busy studying and they can't be asked to sit down and like make a full meal that they actually need to fuel themselves to do that shit, right? Like there's so many levels of institutional privilege that go into getting people in those positions and in that spot to begin with, and we can't even like address those things and all the things that we're going to learn until we fix those problems itself, right? So we're going to be in this cycle where we're constantly learning about all of these things, and it's going to seem like all this new shit's popping up out of nowhere, but really we're going to be learning more about the human condition that's already been prevalent since forever. End rant.
I always enjoy a good rant.
Yep.
That is definitely something, like I said, we could go off into a whole other episode on. But for today's episode, we're a little bit over an hour and a half. So, I know you said a lot there, Sophia. Did you have any sort of concluding thoughts?
Nope, that's it. That's my concluding thoughts.
Alright. What about you, Scott?
Yeah, I want everyone to remember to seek authentic and truthful, I guess, spirituality and magic. Not just, like, think of the land that you're on currently, and maybe you can also, I think of the land your ancestors came from, and understand how that relates together, like where you are as a person actively and where you are at in your life, etc. But make sure it's authentic, make sure it's truthful and honest, and not seek something that's easy. If it's easy, I don't want to say you're not doing it right, but maybe it's not exactly what you want it to be. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
You'll
You know what I
kind of
mean?
know if the
Yeah.
shortcut feels like cheating. You know how like sometimes a shortcut is a shortcut, and it's like, oh yeah, hell yeah, take that. That is the
Yeah.
logical choice.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
sometimes
good.
a
Everyone gets
shortcut,
it.
yep, and sometimes a shortcut feels like cheating. If it feels like cheating, it is. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely. I'm glad that made sense. I'm so glad all
yeah,
of you were like, absolutely, like, yay.
100%. And I think that's really what we're trying to drive home in this episode here. But yes, we will see everyone in the next one. Me and Rue are going to take care of the spirit attachment that we talked about early or in the episode. I'll have to see if maybe my sister's Krampus ornament is housing a spirit of actual Krampus. I don't know. We could see. So, oh, Chris, you like the extra long episodes. I just wanted to say, Chris and Tetrabrighton have been in the chat. Tetrabrighton's been one of our oldest listeners, longest listeners. Very happy to have you
Yeah,
here with
he's
us
like
today.
the original
Yeah, and
long time viewer.
Chris has been very solidly steady with us the past couple months. Could even be up to a year at this point. You've been with us. I'm not sure, but
It's been a long time.
It's been a great time. I'm glad you all were in the chat, and we will see you all in the next one. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Are we done?
We are now.
Okay. It's funny.